and welcome back to the We Rise podcast. So glad to have you on today. I'm excited to share some specific tools and techniques today in this episode about welcoming people to a long-term collaborative or welcoming people to a space where folks have been meeting together for a while. This is a question that I get quite a bit in my work as a facilitator with our company Dialogue and Design Associates, where we work with groups often for many years. Often we work with groups who have many different kinds of people coming together. And in a nutshell, what we do is help people envision their future, find tools and resources to make it happen, and to actually make their idea a reality. And as I've mentioned in previous episodes, one of the things that we firmly believe is that community resilience is really built on the local ideas of local leaders. But often folks don't know where to actually share their ideas, or there might not be spaces in their community to gather where it feels like a safe space for them. So what we do is we help create a safe space or a space that is welcoming for different people to come together. And we often have many different facets of a community coming together, from economic development practitioners to environmental advocacy organizations, academic institution, local, state, or federal agency representatives, a wide array of people. And we intentionally work to create a space that is as welcoming as possible to as many kinds of people as possible. And that often needs to shift over time. We work with groups really to help create solutions to either economic challenges in their community, planning challenges, and especially around environmental and sustainability issues. We work on watershed planning, creating living shorelines, solar in the coal field, a number of different issues that you've heard about on previous episodes. But what I want to drill down to a little bit more is specifically around how to create a welcoming space when you've worked together for a long time. And really how to keep that door open. When you have people who have been working together for a long time, they often have a lot of shared history in their work together. They often have a lot of shared knowledge. They also have points that they get stuck frequently. And often there's a desire to welcome new people into a collaborative or a group that maybe decisions are made by consensus, but it's also hard to keep the door open to new folks because there's a perception that they might really change the way that a group dynamic that might be perceived as comfortable, what that might look like, or they might not have the information to be able to participate effectively. Or there's just the factor of the unknown, that understood sense of fear about what might a new person welcome, what might a new person bring to the group, or someone that might have very different political beliefs as some of the others in the group. So there's often a sense of excitement, but hesitation or nervousness about welcoming new people to the group. What I've found though, and I've worked with groups for 5 years, sometimes 10 years, but often we're in it for the long haul. And that's where we see change really happen in working at a regional scale, is in that kind of at least a year long initiative, because that's how relationships are built and that's how trust is built. And it's through building relationships and trust that the needle really moves to grow resilience, to allow communities to bounce forward after some kind of a shock or a difficult time. And that relationship and trust formation is what sustains communities in the hard times. But for groups that don't keep the door open to new folks, they often dwindle. Numbers get lower. People naturally need to move on to new things in life over time. And there's a sense of stagnation when new people are not welcome to the group. So in this episode, I'm going to offer a couple specific tools and techniques around how to do it, how to keep the door open, and how to do it well. So the first thing, and there are about 10 different strategies here about really how to keep the door open and welcome people in an ongoing collaborative. And the intention really is to keep the momentum up for a group, to keep the effectiveness up for a group, to share the history of how the group has been working. So how to welcome people in an effective way, still a productive way, a fun way, go slow sometimes in order to go fast. Sometimes groups do need to slow down in order to work for the long haul, but to really be intentional about the approach. And these 10 strategies are really how to be intentional about keeping the door open. So the first strategy is just that. Be intentional about people coming to the group. Let people know that the door is open and they're welcome to join a group. Now, this might be a band, might be a chorus, it might be groups like we work with frequently, which are groups who are working together to collaborate around environmental issues or economic development issues, but literally let them know that there's space for them at the table. Maybe even having extra chairs at the space, or greeting people by their first name, looking them in their eyes when they come in the door and smiling. And sometimes we just need to be intentionally welcomed to a space so that we can feel at home and feel like we matter and that we want to come back again. It often takes people a little while to feel comfortable enough to really join. So we need to be intentional about how we create that space. Second is make it easy for people to learn about the history of a group and decisions that have been made. We often track what decisions have been made in groups. We share meeting summaries and key decisions that have been made in the past, or if there are taboo topics or ones that need to be approached sensitively. One group that I worked with had a specific building that a lot of people were interested in, but there was a lot of really sensitive political issues. So we just said, this is an important topic, but one that we're not going to talk about right now. It's kind of a short-term taboo topic. It doesn't mean that it's still important to approach taboo topics, but why, and to find a way to address them in the long term. We often create kind of a welcoming or a guiding document with information about how a collaborative works, how decisions are made, so that when new people join, they can quickly learn about a group even before they join or when they join, so they know, they can feel like they know what's happening and that they're not thrown under the bus initially. A lot of times groups are moving fast. There's a lot of information, decisions have been made, so it's important to have a way for people to feel like they can get onboarded well. The third strategy is to offer to have a one-on-one meeting with new members. Offer to sit down with people in person or meet by phone to let them know about the history of a group and how that group works. Let them know where potentially sticky spots are in the group, what past dynamics are, without divulging any sensitive information that isn't okay to share. Talk about specifics without attributing names to individuals, but let the new person know where potential landmines are as well. At the same time, let them know where the excitement is in the group, where the new opportunities are, and how they might be able to plug in. Give folks a chance to ask questions and become familiar with the group and to know where it's headed. Fourth, do you have an action plan? Does your band have a songbook that you're working from, developing songs from over the course of the year? Or does your community collaborative have an action plan? Hopefully so, where you might have your vision, your mission, your goals, your actions, and then how you're going to realize those action strategies. What's the time frame? What's the coordinator? What resources are needed? How do you know you're successful? So all of that would commonly be in an action plan. And if you have one, share it with someone new. Let them know where the group is going. What are the goals? How are you going to get there? Document all those things. And beyond that, again, break down those action steps into details. That's really key and often gets skipped over. But, around those action steps, as I mentioned, who's coordinating it, who's helping out, what resources are needed, time frame, and metrics for success. Define all of this, write it up, and then share it out publicly. Share it on a website, share it with new members, and talk about it together. This is how people will know where you are and what you've been up to, and also where you're going. At the same time, share about your accomplishments. What have you done that you're really proud of as a group? And how do you know you're successful at a certain time frame? Sometimes we just need to pause and celebrate successes, even if that's, we brought on 3 new people this year as partners, or we were able to hold this event that we were really proud of, but celebrate those successes. And then the flip side, how do you know you've reached an endpoint? So let people know where you are within that action plan and share it out. Fifth strategy is to acknowledge new ideas from new members. A lot of times when folks have been meeting for a long time, they might have talked about all the ideas under the sun, and there's a little bit of hesitancy to welcome new ideas from new members. But we always use group guidelines when we meet, and one of those top guidelines, often those guidelines are generated from within the group. One of those top guidelines is that all ideas are welcome, and really welcoming new ideas from members, even if they've been something that has been visited before. Really, those ideas should be welcome. It might be something we write down to come back to later, but there might be new energy to get that idea done now. Often ideas are not actually implemented because people don't have the juice, they don't have the energy to get that thing done. So if someone brings a new idea to a group, and if they're a new member, welcome that idea and maybe ask them what ideas they have to make that idea a reality, and see if that idea generates traction or legs. Maybe document to come back to that idea later, but see if someone has an interest in moving that idea forward. The next strategy is a little bit more specific. It can be a little bit tedious for people who have been in a group for a while, but it's an important one. And that's at any kind of in-person meeting or gathering or summit or symposium. Just at the very beginning, give an overview of what the effort is for a couple minutes. And it might just take 2 to 3 minutes, but share some background, the vision, and the context. And here are a couple examples from recent gatherings where folks that we work with have done this really, really well. So one of the projects that we work with is the Upper and Middle James Riparian Consortium. And this is an effort we've been working with for over 4 years, and it's in Central and Western Virginia around the Upper and Middle James River watershed. It's about 25 counties, and it's really to help increase the amount of streamside forest and buffers along the James River and its tributaries in these counties. And it is, we have a lot of different partners working together, but as people find out about the Riparian Consortium, they want to come together. We had a really great event a couple weeks ago called a Buffer Summit, and we had new people who were coming to that event. We had speakers, we had hikes, we had musicians, we had locally wild crafted non-alcoholic beverages. We had a wide array of things happening, and we wanted those new people to feel like they had a place within the consortium, that they were welcome. And Amber Ellis is the convener for the consortium. And the beginning of the Buffer Summit, she just took a couple minutes to share a couple slides about where the consortium's been, what's been happening, and what the plan is for the future. And people who have been part of an effort can be part of the storytelling of what the effort is, or part of a welcoming committee. Amber, asked steering committee members to raise their hand and let new people know who was part of the decision-making for the effort so that they could help connect with those people one-on-one. And that really helps keep an effort becoming an insular network. It helps keep it being generative in its energy and its growth. So just acknowledging where a group has been and where it's going really helps keep the entity moving forward. Another project that really does a great job at welcoming people to each meeting is the Solar Work Group of Southwest Virginia. And we had an episode about the Solar Work Group, just the very last one that was released. It's a really awesome effort. And the steering committee meets monthly, and they are the group that makes decisions by consensus for the initiative. Now, when the steering committee was small, it had a really strong culture of a lot of joking around and playfulness, and it was a fun and productive group. But that group had been meeting together for a couple years. As the group has grown, and we've had more members join, those kind of inside jokes didn't make the most sense to always share with everybody, but we continued to keep a sense of playfulness with new people, but to not continue to tell those same jokes so that people felt like they were on the outside. So we've worked to retain a sense of playfulness, but also effectiveness in decision making and welcoming new people as the group has grown over time. We also need to keep a sense of openness to what a group will become, because it's not going to be the same thing in the future that it has been. And this really mirrors what happens in communities. Communities change. They don't just stay the same. And when we are intentional in honoring our past, that really actually helps create space for the future. When we acknowledge it, when we celebrate it, sometimes when people move on and they're no longer part of a group, we need to mourn it. But when we honor it, it allows space for the new. Change is absolutely guaranteed, but how you respond to change is totally up to you, or how you react to it. But acknowledging the feelings and celebrating people who have been key to an initiative is really important, and it also helps keep the door open to new folks. The seventh strategy is really around feelings a little bit more, and that's just to allow grace, foster trust, notice fear, and that having an agreement to notice feelings as they emerge and name them helps people work together and lean on each other to get through hard times and celebrate the good ones when they arise. And we've touched on this next one a little bit. The eighth strategy is to celebrate folks when they leave for the work that they've done and welcome new people. New people are an integral part of long-standing groups, and adapt your recipe. Allow for those new folks to join, but really also make a space to acknowledge people when they need to move on for whatever reason. Thank them and don't give them a hard time about it. Just really thank them and let them move on to the next thing. The ninth strategy is to create an intentional space for quieter folks to share their ideas. Some ways to do this are just to ask if anyone who hasn't spoken yet in a meeting has something they want to share, to look around the room, look to the back of the room and corners, and see if anybody has their hand raised that we might not be noticing, and to also set the norm when you're creating meeting guidelines that if you're somebody who is quick to raise your hand or quick to ask a question or quick to speak without shaming, you're really acknowledging people that we love those folks who are quick to raise their hand and quick with ideas, but maybe ask them to pause for a moment to raise their hand if they're taking up a lot of space in order to make space for other members. And again, that's really important to do that without a sense of othering or shaming, but just to say to folks, hey, if you're used to being able to really verbalize things quickly, that's not the way it is for everybody. So just make some space for folks who take a few more minutes to come up with an idea. And lastly, the 10th strategy is to celebrate your wins along the way. Don't just continue to work without taking time to celebrate, to breathe, to play, to rest, and then roll up your sleeves to continue the work. And another way that it was just really fun recently to do that was with the Solar Work Group of Southwest Virginia. And you can hear more about how we really celebrated a win of having solar panels installed at Wise Primary School in the last episode of the We Rise podcast. So celebrate your wins, keep the door open to new folks, and you'll find through keeping the door open to new folks, you'll continue to have that energy and excitement and moving forward, but continue to welcome and value the knowledge, the history, the institutional memory that long-term members have. They're really important and they're really essential in keeping a long-term effort going. And so it's really a both and approach of keeping the group grounded where it has been, keeping the door open to new members, and recognizing it's not an either or approach, but it is a both and approach. So let us know how things are going for you in your collaboratives. Let us know where you're finding successes and welcoming new people. Let us know where you're having a hard time. And if you want to learn more about how to actually grow community resilience at the community scale, check out our free PDF download around 3 simple strategies to grow a more sustainable future at our website, yeswerise.org. Thanks for joining. We look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.